Good evening, everyone. We will call the Monday, June 15, 2015 City Council meeting to order. First order of business is roll call and determination of the quorum. Charlene.
Scott. Here. Drew. Here. Lewis. Here. Doyle. Here. Wright. Here. Estes. Here. Nordstrom. Here. Roberts. Here. Weifenbach. Here. Lorente. We have quorum.
Thank you. We will now recognize Keith Culver from Bethel Assembly for our invocation. You are welcome to participate, but not required.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to serve our community, Lord, and I just ask you to bless this council and this great city of Rapid, Lord, and I just ask you to continue to bless our nation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Pastor Keith. We are now on to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions to tonight's agenda? Okay. We do have a minor or an item to add to item 7. This will be discussion also of pending litigation, as I understand it. Discussion of pending litigation. Also on item 7 under executive session. We have a motion by Nordstrom. We have a second by Estes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We now have some awards and recognitions, and first we'll start off with some fire department longevity awards. And if Captain Nick Carlson, Lieutenant Rob Eddy, and Assistant Chief Rod Seals join me down front along with our Fire Chief Mike Multivern. The City of Rapid City is honored to have many long-serving city employees, and the fire department is no exception to that. Tonight we are recognizing several city employees, and we'll start first with Lieutenant Rob Eddy.
I'll just go ahead and take the opportunity to go down through these three individuals here one at a time and give you a little bit of their history with the department, but start with Lieutenant Rob Eddy, who's immediately to the mayor's left here, and Rob's a native of Spearfish. It's something he and I share in common, and I think we knew each other a little bit in our youth, but certainly have come to be much closer in our service with the department. But we actually stole Rob from the U.S. Forest Service, where he was working as a seasonal firefighter, and joined Rapid City, of course, 20 years ago this month. He was promoted to lieutenant in the operations division in 2009, and he's been pretty instrumental as the fire department has become more and more involved with wildland fire or forest fire mitigation efforts and suppression efforts. Rob was kind of on the front end of that with a number of us and helped us make Rapid City better prepared for wildfires and forest fires and the like. And he's traveled all over the United States representing the fire department on some of the more larger wildfires throughout the country, and is currently serving at Station 5, which is in the southwest corner of the city near Park Drive, kind of a little slice of heaven over there. But if you look at that station, that's probably one of the more picturesque facilities in the city, and certainly it's because of Rob and his efforts and the crew out there. But does an excellent job for the city and is one of our up-and-comers. He's on our list to likely be promoted to captain, and so we're looking forward to what his future looks like coming up here real soon with some changes. Next to him is the rather large guy in the middle. He's really in pretty good shape. He's just really that big. Captain Nick Carlson works down at Station 1 on A shift. Our busiest station, of course, it's kind of the workhorse of the city. Nick is a native of Rapid City, a graduate of Central High School, I believe, so it's always good when we can keep the guys from local here working for the fire department. He was promoted to operations lieutenant in 2007, and then promoted to operations captain in 2011. He's also an acting battalion chief, so when those administrative chiefs like myself go home in the evenings from a 40-hour week, it's guys like Nick that stay on and continue to protect the city and run or orchestrate all the activities of the fire department. And so we put a great deal of responsibility on this gentleman's shoulders when we all go home at night, and keeps us safe. Nick's kind of an innovator. He's typically in charge of special projects for the department. He's kind of a go-getter. Training is a passion of his. I stood next to him and I noticed his shoulder is kind of dirty. That means he probably had some fire hose draped over his shoulder sometime today, and that's just the kind of individual he is. He's also riding an ambulance tonight. He's a pretty diverse employee. We have three categories of firefighters it's kind of an inside joke. They're lifters, thinkers, and reachers. Rob Eddy, he's kind of a thinker. Nick, he's kind of a lifter. And he's also a breaker. We had to create a new category for Nick because he's really good at breaking stuff. So if you ever shake his hand, you'll lose sight of your hand real quickly. And then last but not least is Assistant Chief Rod Seals. Certainly it's an honor for me to serve alongside Rodney. And he'll attest to this. He really keeps me straight in my job as I'm going around the city interacting with the community. It's Rod left back to do the heavy lifting for the fire department, and I'm very, very grateful of his efforts. Rob grew up on an almond farm in California, and then by way of Wyoming landed in Rapid City about 20 years ago. He was promoted to operations lieutenant in 2007, and now catch these timelines: captain in 2010, battalion chief in 2010, and assistant chief in 2011. Now, if that doesn't give you a little bit of an insight about how gifted this guy is in the department and how he climbed the ladder, and he's earned the right to be an assistant chief for the department and just does an outstanding job. Is responsible for the budget, oversees training, human resources, and certainly direction and oversight of three of the department's divisions, one of the three, that being the largest, and that's the firefighting group. And again, he's a very analytical person. He's really entrenched in strategy and tactics, and has a true passion for firefighter safety, and that being health and all the things that it takes to keep those guys and gals safe. And again, so back to the three types of firefighters, Rod's a thinker. So with that, I'm very fortunate to have these three gentlemen, and I am certainly honored to serve alongside of them, and they just do an outstanding job for not just me and the organization, but for you and everybody who lives and works and plays in Rapid City. So with that, thank you.
If Kathy Robeson could come up and help present our Beautification Committee Yard of the Month. This is a Ward 2 award, so if our Ward 2 council members could come up, please.
My name is Kathy Robeson. I'm a member of the Rapid City Beautification Committee. And we designed several years ago a Yard of the Month, and we give those awards June through October. You can donate or nominate yourself. You can nominate a neighbor, nominate a friend. It doesn't matter. All they need to do is be living in the city of Rapid City. We recognize and promote the enhancement of personal property within the city of Rapid City, and this includes the overall appearance of the structure, yard, landscape, and hardscape. I have to tell you, I do not go hunting in people's backyards. This is only the front, how it looks from the street. But this month's winner, and I'm sorry to say that they were unable to attend, and Richie is actually the person who nominated this family. It's Mary Lou Clark. They live at 2027 Ivy Avenue, and they have totally renovated their front yard. They will receive a certificate showing that they were Yard of the Month for June of 2015. They'll also receive a small window sign that they can put in their window. And then in the past, we have gotten the greenhouses to donate gift certificates. This year, however, through the very generous donation of $250 from the Modern Woodman to the Parks Department, they have in turn given it to us. And so for this year and next year, the gift certificates will be coming from Plant Smith via Modern Woodman. And so they will also receive a gift certificate for $25. And because they weren't able to attend tonight, the mayor's office will mail that information along with the awards to them. Yeah, Jeff needs to sign it. Good. Yeah, okay. I'm going to give you the check. If I can. Yeah, we just need to have Jeff sign it. Jeff Beeler. And he is here. Yeah, I know, but we don't have a chair right now. Well, I can, I guess. Sorry. Do it that way. Okay. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Just stay up here. And we are now pleased to present Veteran of the Month, Anthony Espinoza. In partnership with the Veterans Coordination Commission, we are very pleased to present the June 2015 Veteran of the Month recognition to Anthony Espinoza. Anthony was born and raised in Billings, Montana, and enlisted in the Air Force shortly after completing high school in May 2007. Darn kids. Upon graduation, you're supposed to laugh at that, it's supposed to be serious. Upon graduation from basic military training, Sergeant Espinoza received Fuels Apprentice training at Shepherd Air Force Base, Texas, before reporting to Ellsworth.
While assigned to Ellsworth, Sergeant Espinoza served as mobile hydrant operator, petroleum laboratory technician, and a fuels distribution supervisor before his time in Airman Leadership School, all of which were in support of the B-1 Lancer and the mission of the 28th Bomb Wing. Espinoza has deployed in support of combat joint task forces in the Horn of Africa, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and Operation New Dawn. Today, Staff Sergeant Anthony Espinoza is a professional military education instructor for the Samuel O. Turner Airman Leadership School at Ellsworth. As a member of the ALS staff, he is responsible for helping train up to 200 future supervisors and non-commissioned officers annually. He trains tomorrow's supervisor in curriculum areas pertaining to leadership, management, communication, and the profession of arms. Espinoza is a steward of education and has earned 2 Community College of Air Force Associate's degrees, logistics in 2013 and instructor of technology and military science in 2015. Not only is his education important to him, he is also an avid supporter of the Green Knights Motorcycle Club. He is a rider coach and volunteers by instructing 14 classes each year and approximately 96 students. He evaluates and certifies their capabilities of a safer rider. As you can imagine, in his spare time, he enjoys riding his motorcycle and spending time with his family and friends. Staff Sergeant Espinoza has been serving our country since 2007 with dedication and sacrifice, making him an excellent Veteran of the Month. His example of service makes him deserving of this honor, and we would like to extend our gratitude. Thank you, Anthony Espinoza.
Now we have a special proclamation tonight for Citizen of the Month. Dr. Charles Lindley of Ward 5. The Ward 5 council members could come up, please, along with all of the co-conspirators and fellow teachers who were involved in this important proclamation. Please come up. Pictures. As you can see, Doc, there were a lot of co-conspirators in this. Chuck Lindley was born in the small town of Anselmo, Nebraska, to Lewis and Ethel. He was the middle of 5 children, and all were encouraged and involved in athletics. He grew up in a community of 400 people helping on farms and ranches until graduating from high school in 1948. Upon graduation, he attended the University of Nebraska, where he received his bachelor's in biology. He met and married his better half, Marilyn, after graduation. He then taught and coached for 5 years as head basketball and track coach, as well as assistant coach for football. During his early years, he was focused on his education. He pursued 2 graduate degrees, his master's and doctorate from University of Northern Colorado. At this time, he was a principal. He was then involved in a fellowship at the University of Northern Colorado, where he received his doctorate. He moved to Rapid City in 1961 to join the Rapid City school system. He served as director of secondary education for 5 years and as assistant superintendent for 2 before becoming the school superintendent in 1968. During his time as superintendent, he faced and overcame various challenges, and Harold and Bob have told me about many of those challenges. I heard they were the challenges, weren't they? The first crisis occurred when 6 Central Cobbler cheerleaders were killed in a plane crash while on their way home from the boys' state basketball tournament in Sioux Falls. Next, he dealt with a 9-day teacher strike and continued classes without 429 teachers. Just when things had calmed down, Central High School caught fire in fall of 1970. School resumed a few weeks later in annexes and at a nearby church until construction was complete at Stevens.
In June of 1972, the Rapid City community was impacted with a devastating flood, and although classes were out for the summer break, Dr. Lindley, who also served on the Salvation Army's advisory board, felt called to provide assistance and serve meals at Meadowbrook School with help from school lunch staff. The next challenge occurred in 1973. During a period of considerable unrest in the community, protesters took over his office. Besides the devastation to the community, the unrest among the Native American people, and the nation's involvement in the Vietnam War, Dr. Lindley was also facing financial problems with the schools. Overall, it was a rough time to be in charge and in leadership. In 1975, Dr. Lindley left Rapid City to be a professor and state director of accreditation at the University of Wyoming. He held the position for 17 years until his retirement in 1992, ending a fulfilling career focused on students, faculty, and education. In honor of his service, Dr. Lindley received the following awards: Distinguished Alumni Award from the University of Nebraska, Kearney; Alumnus Educator Award from the University of Northern Colorado, 1990; Don W. Vaughn Excellence in Education Award by the North Central Association, Chicago, 1992, and was given honorary membership in recognition of valued service as president of North Central Association. Chuck and Marilyn wanted to spend their retirement years back in Rapid City among their friends and those who encouraged and supported them, even through difficult times. Although they have always loved the Black Hills, and if you recall, Dr. Lindley started his journey of education with a degree in biology. Together, Chuck and Marilyn have 2 boys and 2 girls, all with college degrees. And although he's been retired for 23 years, Chuck continues to serve. He has made a life member in the Salvation Army Advisory Board. He has volunteered as a big brother for 12 years to the 3 youth. He is on the Black Hills Scout Council and Rotary Club. He volunteered at Meadowbrook and is an active member of the First Congregational Church. In his spare time, he enjoys gardening, fishing, golf, tennis, and is a prolific reader. And you have spare time, really, with all that stuff? Dr. Lindley has lived out the motto, if you see a chance to do good, put your hat and your coat on and get to work, as well as a special framed message that has hung in his office for years: life is short, make haste to be kind. We're grateful Chuck is a part of our community, and we are proud of the service he's done and continues to do. We owe him a hearty and sincere thank you, and some of us think it should have been Lindley High School, but that's another story. Dr. Lindley.
Thank you. I wouldn't know exactly who to thank for this serendipity, this very nice serendipity, but I know somebody's been in collusion with my wife. People were asking me about it. They said, I'll see you on Monday night, and I thought, where will they see me? I wasn't sure where they were going to see me. But, you know, I just say very quickly a couple of things. First of all, if you've had any success at all, you've had a very good wife. And I've had a very good wife for 63 years. Stand up, Mary. We decided to leave the University of Wyoming in 1992 for a couple of reasons. We knew we weren't going to retire there. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Laramie. It's 7,200 feet. And a guy told me when I moved over there, he said it's 8 months of winter and 4 months of bad skiing. and lots of mosquitoes, and we can relate with that here. But when we got ready to decide where we were going, we had a lot of friends down in Colorado, and we're going to Fort Collins. But we had a lot of encouragement from people in Rapid City to come back to Rapid City. And we decided at our age, we didn't have time to make a lot of friends, and we had a lot of them here that were here, and we're awful glad we came back. Thank you.
Let's step over here for a picture.
Thank you.
Be able to get us all in?
That's fine. Grace and I have a long history.
I was a student of his at Laramie.
I taught a class in politics and education, and I told them they were going to get a real live class, and Grace came in and spoke from the teacher's standpoint, and I spoke from everybody else's standpoint. Some of the professors said they'd never had a class quite like that before.
And if council leadership could come up, along with Marty Kraus and Dr. Usera from Black Hills Works.
Good evening. I'm Marty Kraus with Black Hills Works, and we're changing the awards up a little bit. This time, the community is giving an award to Mayor Quaker and the Rapid City Council. So on behalf of Black Hills Works and Source America, this is an award for state and local government in support of people with significant disabilities, and this is a national award. Source America is a central nonprofit that represents over 700 community rehabilitation providers such as Black Hills Works, and they were chosen to be tops in the nation. So this award was given out at the national conference last month in Florida, and we brought that back to present tonight. We got a little bit of excerpts to read here. Mayor Quaker and the Rapid City Council signed a policy that not only helped our agency but all people with significant disabilities in the Rapid City community by allowing them to receive an interview for any open job opportunity that they have qualifications for. Mayor Quaker and the Rapid City Council have been involved with many influential actions in the Rapid City community that support and affect people with significant disabilities, which in turn has helped our nonprofit agency in our continuing support of people with significant disabilities. And Mayor Quaker and the Rapid City Council have supported people with significant disabilities. Mayor Quaker and the council understands the challenges people with significant disabilities face every day, and the mayor personally does everything in his power to support their efforts and encourage them with his actions. Thank you very much.
Works for and Source America for this award. This is an award that has been presented to the entire City Council and to me, and it's something that really means a lot to me, and I know a lot to us. Just some stats here for you. The disability consideration policy was put into place in December of 2011. It was, since that time, 240 applicants out of many thousands for many positions claimed the disability consideration. 36 were referred, meaning they received job interviews, and so far one has been hired. It doesn't sound overall like an impactful policy, but let me tell you why it is. Because the 36 people that received job interviews received interview practice and interview experience that they sorely needed. And as many of us know, people can be born with disability, but also it's the one minority group that you can join over your lunch hour, and it's the one minority group that you can join on your way home tonight, and you can join it again tomorrow and the next day and the next day after that with multiple and varied disabilities. So our community has shown, and yes, this policy was questioned in the beginning, and then it was reauthorized unanimously, and now I believe it will hopefully stay as a permanent part of the city human resources policies, and it's modeled after a number of state and federal policies already in existence. So thank you very much for this award. It means a lot to us. Thank you. We now have a Year of Reconciliation proclamation. And if our Mayor-elect Steve Allender could come up along with Tim and Jackie Gallego. Tonight is a cause for celebration, and not just because this is my last city council meeting or full city council meeting. This is a special event, and our new mayor and I have worked together on this, and this was something that was brought to us as a suggestion by Tim and Jackie Gallego. I never had the privilege of meeting Governor Mickelson, but I have had the privilege of getting to know and to call my friends Tim and Jackie, who were part of the original Year of Reconciliation in 1990. And it was at their suggestion that we consider doing something similar. Tonight is my last full city council meeting, so we thought about doing it tonight, but I wanted, if I did it tonight, I wanted it to also include our new mayor. I'm the mayor for the first half of this year, and he's the mayor for the second half of this year, and we felt that it would be meaningful on a number of levels for the two of us to come together and proclaim this as a renewed year of reconciliation. So in the theme of me being the mayor for the first half of this year and Mayor-elect Allender for the second half, I will read the first half of the proclamation and then allow him to finish it out. Whereas historical events provide future generations with a link to our past, as well as recognition of the issues, perspectives, decisions, and actions of that time, and impact those decisions and actions, and the impact those decisions and actions had on Native American peoples. And whereas it is important for everyone in our community, regardless of race, creed, or status, be encouraged to come together, to focus on reconciliation, and to work together on issues that can benefit our entire community, region, and all people. And whereas in 1990, Lakota newspaper publisher Tim Gallego urged urged Governor George S. Mickelson to honor the victims of the Wounded Knee Massacre on the 100th anniversary of the massacre by proclaiming 1990 as a year of reconciliation. And whereas the governor made the proclamation in 1990 became the year of reconciliation, this year marks the 25th anniversary of that signing and of that Declaration of Reconciliation in South Dakota. And whereas 2015 is the 125th anniversary of the Wounded Knee Massacre, which occurred in December 1890, and the 139th anniversary of the Battle of Little Bighorn in June of 1876.
Whereas racial issues remain an important and critical part of the community's relationship with its residents and its ability to foster and promote growth and reconciliation for the future, and whereas the City of Rapid City is committed to improving race relations and working to promote reconciliation, education, and awareness among its residents and visitors, and whereas everyone in our community, regardless of race, creed, or status, is encouraged to come together to learn from the past and focus on reconciliation for the future, and whereas now, 25 years later, the City of Rapid City is ready to take the next step. Based on the numerous landmark anniversaries, it is fitting for Rapid City to lead the state of South Dakota by proclaiming 2015 as the renewed year of reconciliation. Therefore, now, I, Sam Quaker, Mayor of Rapid City, and Steve Allender, Mayor-elect, proclaim 2015 as in Rapid City, South Dakota, as the renewed year of reconciliation, and urge all citizens to join together to promote awareness and work toward reconciliation among all citizens despite race, creed, or status.
I would like to thank Mayor, incoming Mayor. Sometimes race is hard to talk about, and it's a subject that might offend people or even embarrass others. But in a way, it's still here in Rapid City. I was born and raised on the Pine Ridge Reservation. I went to school at Holy Rosary, which is now Red Cloud Indian School. And we moved to Rapid City when my father got a job at what was called Rapid City Air Force Base. And the first thing we ran into was trying to find a place to live. It was very difficult back then. I'm going back 70 years ago. Moved here when I was 10 years old, which makes me 80. And I've seen a lot happen in Rapid City, and a lot of it, I think I've seen some changes. I've seen people really try to extend a hand of friendship. And I know Rapid City could be an example for all the other cities in the state of South Dakota by proclaiming a renewed year of reconciliation here. You're doing something as a city. The state tried it 25 years ago, and unfortunately, the man who really was behind it, Governor Mickelson, was killed in the plane crash, and it never got off the ground. So Rapid City can pick it up. We can extend a hand across to each other and be friends. And I appreciate this very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Do we have a motion to go into executive session? Motion by Doyle, second by Nordstrom. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to come out of executive session? Motion by Doyle, second by Lewis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 7 is to authorize mayor and finance officer to sign settlement agreement with Randy Feem.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Estes, second by Wright. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Under general public comment, we do have a couple of items. We'll first recognize Joe Lowe. Or general public comment. Good evening, Joe.
Is this the good evening, Mr. Mayor, members, honorable members of the City Council. My name is Joe Lowe. I'm a 8-year businessman downtown, and in addition to that, I was a state fire chief for wildland fire suppression, and also a mayor of a city of 100,000. A couple of things came to my attention just recently that I took issue with, and I'm bringing them forward with solutions to you this evening, or possible solutions. Issue number 1 was the first Summer Nights event that drew a lot of people to town. Reason I got involved, I got a call after my employee's shift, and she told me her tires were slit in the downtown parking garage. The lady didn't have a lot of money to spend on tires for that. 2 was, at the same time, just close by, one of the cooks from one of the restaurants downtown, somebody stood on the hood of his car and jumped up and down on it and dented that. Third issue was, you're familiar with, somebody standing on top of a police car on 6th Street. You know, these are not acceptable types of activities we'd like to see in the city. I think we've seen for years some issues with summer nights, but what happens is, at this point, we're starting to see acts of vandalism and destruction of city property. Tourism is number 2 item, is the number 2 industry for the state of South Dakota. Our businesses depend much on these type of the summer activity that comes in, the tourists. I think there's solutions to this. We got to stop it. Everyone here in this room has worked very hard to create this as a downtown destination city, okay, for the nation. People come in from all over the state, even in our state, and talk about how wonderful the downtown's become. So it needs to be nipped in the bud. Issue 2 is, I believe an event that causes us to bring in an additional 10 officers should pay for the additional officers or hire its own security. Now, an example, a good cooperator who plans for and budgets for events and security is Main Street Square. They pay $28,000 for their own security. And so an event, like I say, that causes us to bring in 10 additional officers should pay their fair share. And as a taxpayer, I think we should look at that. Solution issue number 1, okay? In my city, when I was mayor, we had a spike in crime. We had our first drive-by shooting. This wasn't acceptable for that city. Caused us great concern. So the second thing is what happened is we asked the sheriff's department, who we contracted police services with, to come in. We worked together. We started a task force. It was plainclothes officers, and those plainclothes officers mixed in and infiltrated the gangs, the thugs, and the people that are perpetrating the crimes. So what happened is, at that point, was they knew what they were planning. They stopped crimes in progress, and they also did a good job in breaking this up. Second solution, real quick, is I think Summer Nights ought to pay for its own security, whatever their fair share is, how many officers they use. And in addition to that, free the police officers up so they can go do what they do best, our police officers. That's catch the bad guys and take care of crime within the city. Expected outcome, real simple. Fix some of these issues. As far as the payments and things, I would take a look at that, because I don't believe the citizens of this city should bear the brunt of those costs on an event that runs all summer long. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Our next general public comment speaker request form is from Scott and Justina Glasgow. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Scott Glasgow, and I live at 327 Mead with my wife and children. And we're asking for a variance or an amendment to Ordinance 6820 about keeping livestock, specifically goat, in the city limits. I would need to see if we can allow 2 miniature dairy goats as therapy service animals for my disabled wife. I've got her original diagnosis and a goat note from her psychiatrist, and I'm not sure what else to do from here, but I'd like to be heard on this subject at some time.
Thank you. If I could ask our city attorney's office to look into our existing rules and provide an update at committee. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm up on the rules, so I mean, the ordinance specifically prohibits goats unless you're on an agriculturally zoned lot. And I will say that, you know, usually service animals are defined under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Well, they've changed the rules, so now only dogs are considered service animals. And they've also excluded emotional support as a legitimate service animal. So if you want to put it on an agenda, we can put it on an agenda, but as this gentleman stated, if they were, the only way they could really be allowed to keep the goat is if the ordinance was amended. But I can put a memo together and lay it out a little more.
Why don't we do that? Let's put it on the next legal and finance agenda as an item from Scott and Justina Glasgow, and under public items from the public, and you can attach your memo to that item.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do not have any additional, thank you very much. We do not have any additional general public comment items. Have I missed anyone? General public comment is now closed. We are on item number 8. This is a report from Rapid City Public Libraries, and we'll now recognize Chairman Rod Pettigrew, Jim McShane, our director, and Sean Minkle, our assistant director.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm Rod Pettigrew, Chairman of the Board for the Rapid City Public Libraries. Jim McShane, our old director. He's not new anymore, but we do have Sean Minkle with us. He's our newly appointed Assistant Library Director. We've put together a brief PowerPoint presentation. We may need some IT support on this. As you can see, this last year we had over 400,000 visitors at our facility, and our circulation surpassed over 1 million for the 6th consecutive year. You can see our circulation breakdown. Libraries used to just be books, but as you can see, there's a lot more going down or happening at the library than just books. In fact, there are some libraries across the United States who rent lawnmowers, they sell passports, they sell fishing licenses. So libraries anymore today are becoming a center of a city where people can go and get a lot more assistance than just books. These are, what would you call these things?
Databases.
These are databases that we use to gather information, and people can go there and download books, and you can even stream movies from the public library. This slide represents our usage of digital downloads, database use, and our programming attendance. And as you can see, everything is on the increase. One service that I think is really an amazing service that we have is our homebound service. We have a staff that will provide personalized service to 90 patrons who have limited mobility requirements, and we deliver books, pick up books, find out what books they want to read, and it's a way to improve those people's lives. We also do test proctoring for different companies in town. One thing that Jim showed me this last week, if you haven't had an opportunity, it probably mean more to people who were in Rapid City during the 1972 flood, which I was here at that time. We've got a memorial there, and it's pretty amazing. It's a pretty sacred place. You sit there and you think you're in church looking at all these pictures. We also have a 1973 AIM occupation of Wounded Knee and a 1930 to 1969 Rapid City Journal digital access. We also offer meeting spaces. My wife tutors a woman who's trying to learn English down there, and there are other people who use our meeting spaces for community-based programs as well. As you guys know, we probably have several partnerships. We have General Beadle Elementary School that we partner with. We run that library in the afternoon, and then on Saturdays and Sundays. We have partnerships with the Doll Fine Arts Center, Black Hills Knology, Literacy Council, Rapid City Genealogical Society, and the Black Hills Area Community Foundation. You can also book a librarian. You can call down to our library and reserve space with one of our librarians, and they'll show you how to use an e-reader. We have an oral history project. To be real candid with you, I don't know what Hoopla is or India Flix is, but we offer those things, so they must be pretty amazing. And then, of course, we have the Rapid City Archives through, how do you pronounce it?
Biblioboard.
Biblioboard. You have to be a librarian to pronounce half these things, so.
Moving right along.
And coming in August, we have a Chaos Makerspace that we've created down there. We have 3D printers. People can come down there and create all sorts of amazing things on these printers. And they pay for the cost of the materials, but the actual use of the printer is a service we provide. And also on the way in 2015, we're making a Rapid City Local History Room. And that's right now in the process. I think, has that been bid?
It is out to bid.
It's out to bid right now, so we'll have a lot of local history of Rapid City. More partnerships. We are in the process of trying to create partnerships with Wall, Hill City, and Keystone. Being very candid with you, they would probably benefit more from our partnership with them than us benefiting from them, but we feel by working together with these smaller libraries, we can offer everybody better service. And then Jim's trying to create a Black Hills Library Consortium that will include 12 to 14 libraries, Spearfish, Sturgis, Custer, and Hot Springs. Again, it's a way for all the libraries to share resources and work together and bring better services to our patrons. The Learning Center is a clearinghouse for educational and information resources that we provide. There's volunteers that do tutoring and help for students, homeschoolers, and lifelong learners of any age. And I remember back in the good old days, we had a Rapid City bookmobile. My mother would drag me to that thing, and I'd go in there and do nothing but probably raise all sorts of hell inside the thing. So we're looking at recreating that, but we're going to call it a mobile branch. And this would be a branch on wheels where we could go to different parts of the city, and we could even use this in the county, and take it to New Underwood, Wall, Hill City. And the benefit this would give our patrons would be there'd be inside of this the space for a children's story time. Small children could come. We'd have internet accessibility, so it may be in rural areas where they don't have that or it's not as good, they can come to our mobile branch and use our internet services that would be part of this unit. At this point in time, we're in the stages of gathering information, but we believe it would be a huge asset to patrons of Rapid City and the county as well. A few closing comments here. I'm sure you are all aware of our departure from our partnership with the WDT. The Rapid City Library Board looked at that relationship very well, very hard, and we voted unanimously that we thought it was not in the best interests of our citizens to be investing the money we were there, so we voted unanimously to pull out of that partnership. Today, members of the Rapid City Library Board met with the Pennington County Commission, and we're starting discussions on funding that the county provides the library. As you may or may not be aware, the county is running out of money to fund the library, or the county's share of that. So we are trying to come to some resolution as how to continue providing services to county patrons and what that would look like and who's going to pay for what and what the total cost would be. In closing, the board would like to thank the City Council and the Mayor for your continued support. As Mayor Quaker starts a new adventure, I want to commend the Mayor for his appointments to the Library Board. It's my understanding Sam is the first mayor to exercise his option to appoint the Library Board versus having the Library Director choose their own board. As you are all aware, the Library Board the last 3 years has had many challenges and seen many changes. You, the council, and the mayor's office have left us alone and let the board do their job, and we really appreciate that. You weren't meddling in our affairs. You let us function, and I think because of that, we were able to work through these last 3 years. By having a diverse board with many backgrounds and no alliances to anyone, we've been able to make common sense decisions. We are looking forward to working with Mayor-elect Ellender and would encourage Steve to continue the appointment process to the library. I'd like to make you folks aware that the current board has the best interests of the city and county in hand. With Jim McShane leading our library and our new assistant director, Sean Michael, we are raising the bar and improving our services and the quality of our services. As I travel around the globe, I take advantage of every opportunity to visit libraries. I can assure you that we have a library system that is leading the way with technology, innovation, and if you don't know the staff down there, they are probably the most amazing staff on the face of the earth. They just do an amazing job. So if that's the end of our presentation. If you have any questions, I would be more willing to answer those.
Thank you. Any questions for Chairman Pettigrew or our Director Jim McShane? Seeing none, do we have a motion to
acknowledge?
Acknowledge? We have a motion by Wright and a second by Estes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're now in public comment for items 9 through 42. Public comment is now open. We have 2 speaker request forms so far, one for item 30, one for item 31. Item number 30 will recognize Hanny Shaffey from Dream Design Owners Representative to come up. And while he's coming up, I'll just read this into the record. This is to approve with the requirement to sign a waiver of right to protest the request from Dream Design for a variance to waive the requirement to install sidewalk per city ordinance on the east side of proposed Healing Way north of Tatanka Court within the proposed Buffalo Crossing development. Good evening, Hanny. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Hanny Shaffey with Dream Design. This project is the good old water slide that occupied the corner of Highway 16 and Catherine Boulevard for decades and entertained several of our kids in the community. And when we purchased that, by the way, the water slides were auctioned before we took it over, so don't blame me for taking the water slides out and wipe out a lot of the memories. We're hoping to develop a great mixed-use development in that corner. That corner is about 60 acres, approximately. Item 30, just to give you a history behind this, we purchased the property late, about the third quarter of last year, and we met with the state, and we met with staff, city staff, and DOT staff, and commissioned a traffic study in coordination with the state highway department to really, since those 2 roads surrounding the property are state highways. Meanwhile, we proceeded with development of some preliminary subdivision plans. We submitted those for review by city staff, and we actually were told after about roughly 3 weeks that the review was suspended because they want a traffic study. And meanwhile, the traffic study is being worked on for about 3 months, coordinated with the state. So our traffic engineer, who is sub-consultant from Denver who's actually doing work for the state in that corner has attempted to call city staff for approximately 3 weeks and nobody returned his call. Meanwhile, the holding costs for the property are approximately $1,300 every day. And we continue with the process, and we submitted a variance, which is before you, item number 30, in which we requested to waive the requirement for sidewalk in one side. And we did not do that request because we wanted to save costs. No, we actually did that because we believed that the zoning to allow apartments at the bottom of the canyon is completely unbuildable, and instead of building a sidewalk right next to the canyon, we wanted to put a buffer of landscaping and build a wider sidewalk, twice as wide as required, on the opposite side of the street. So we're not doing this request to cut down costs. We submitted the request, and we thought it was logical to approve it. And, it was recommended for denial or approval with a waiver of right to protest future assessment for such a sidewalk. If a sidewalk is built in the future where we put the landscaping, then the buffer and the comprehensive sustainable plan that we worked hard to develop and spent a lot of money to develop will be completely gone in vain. So, and meanwhile, the staff before you is another item which is in the same agenda, similar exactly, within less than 1,000 feet away from this. The staff recommended approval for the same exact item across the street. So we're disappointed, and we hope that we do a comprehensive, sustainable, quality development that the community is worthy of in that corner. Thank you for your help.
We'll now move on to item number 31. Mike Hickey, representing Zanstra Construction, and he's here if there are questions. Would you like to say a few words?
I don't have anything to say. I'm just available if you have questions when if an item comes up and questions arise.
We do not have any additional speaker request forms from items 9 through 42. Have I missed anyone? Last call. Public comment is now closed for those items. Any council members like to remove any items 9 through 42 for separate consideration? Councilmember Darla Drew. Darla?
I'd like to remove item 27, please.
Item 27. Alderman Jerry Wright.
22 and 30.
22, 27, and 30 have been pulled so far. Anything else? Do we have a motion to approve the balance?
So moved.
We have a motion by Lewis and a second by? Scott, to approve items 9 through 42 with the exceptions of 22, 27, and 30. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 22, Alderman Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 22 is to approve the request from Black Hills Corporation for a variance to waive the requirement to install sidewalk per city ordinance 12.08.060 on the north side of proposed Energy Park Drive for the property located southwest of intersection Highway 16 and Catron Boulevard. I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Scott, second by Lewis to approve. Any discussion? Alderman Jerry Wright.
Actually, my discussion is going to focus on 30, and I've asked our Public Works Director to explain why 22 was approved and 30 was recommended for denial, and I think maybe I support the motion to approve Black Hills Corp., but I'd like to have a discussion on item 30.
Can you explain the similarities and differences between the two items? We'll go to our Public Works Director, Terry Waltersdorf.
Yeah, I'll try my best. Although they appear very similar in nature, there are some differences. Particularly Black Hills Power and Lights development, they did include, or they don't include any residential development, so really it's just mainly the commercial development over on their side. There is a substantial amount of pedestrian connectivity throughout their development. If you look at the site plan, they're also installing the pathway along Catron and one that runs generally parallel with Highway 16. So again, although they're similar, they are different. Keep in mind, number 30 here of Mr. Shaffy's, we're talking residential. And I do have some comments on that. If you want me to wait till you get to that item, I will.
Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't know that this item number 22, I understand as commercial, but there'll be no sidewalk in there then?
Go to our Public Works Director, Terry Waltersdorf.
Yes, thank you.
No, there's a substantial amount of sidewalk. If you look at the site plan that was attached to the agenda item, there's basically sidewalk throughout the entire development plan that they have over there. So there's certainly not a shortage of sidewalks and pedestrian connectivity throughout that development plan.
So why are we waiving a sidewalk and then? I mean, I guess I'm not sure I understand this. If there's a sidewalk there, then we're waiving it.
Are you directing your question to anyone in particular?
Yeah, to our Public Works Director, please. I'm not sure that I understand.
I believe the variance in question is the sidewalk along the south side of, I'm trying to recall the name of the roadway that intersects through their property there. They're going to install a sidewalk on one side of that roadway. There's parking lots that basically front on either side of that roadway. Parking lot that serves their new complex there. They're installing a sidewalk on one side but not on the other side.
I'm probably more confused now. Thanks.
Alderman Jerry Wright.
I think the concern is that on the Power and Light petition, which I support, the sidewalk's only on one side of the street, correct? Yes? It's not sidewalk on both
yes,
sides.
I'm trying to get the name of the street here. Energy Park Drive.
There's only sidewalk on one side, correct?
There's sidewalk on one side of Energy Park Drive.
The similarity is, in the item number 30 is the petition is for sidewalk on only one side. So the question is, but that's the difference, Ron, or that's the issue. And I support the Black Hills Court petition is their sidewalk is only on one side of the street, not on both sides.
Alderman Brad Estes.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could ask Terry a question. Terry, if I look at this, it appears to be on Black Hills Corp. that Energy Park Drive is actually like a privately owned road within their own development, though.
It's not a privately owned road, though.
It's not?
No.
Because it appears that they have parking on both sides of it. That's why I guess it. So that Energy Park Drive will become a public street?
I believe so.
I'll yield for right now, Mayor. Thanks.
Floor has been yielded. Anything further? We do have a motion on the floor for approval of item 22. Alderman Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Mayor. May I ask Terry a question, a follow-up question?
Please.
So, Terry, in your statement that the difference here is that Black Hills Corporation is a commercial site and that there will not be residential on the other side of Energy Park Drive, whereas the other item in number 30 is going to include residential development that will have development on the side that the variance to waive the requirement for the sidewalk is. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, in my opinion, I think that's the primary difference. Mayor, would it help to bring up a site plan?
Yes, it would.
It would.
I'll see if Paul can pull that up. All right, Paul's going to do his best to get this up on the screen. All right, I will do my best to explain here. Bear with me. The area that we're dealing with particularly, well, let me show it. The area that's highlighted in green, that's the sidewalk that is being installed as part of this development. What they're requesting for as part of this exception request is, I believe, Energy Park Drive. This is Energy Park Drive that winds through this particular area. I should have picked a different color. I apologize for that. They are not installing sidewalk on the, I guess it would be the north side of Energy Park Drive. They're installing it on the south side of Energy Park Drive. So if I were to look at this, and I'll compare it to the next one that's coming up, my question is, would there ever be a request to you as a city council to have this sidewalk installed? What would be the driving force that would make you as a city council say, we're going to order sidewalk in on this parcel of land now because people are requesting it? I look at this and I don't see anything that would ever bring somebody forward to you as a city council asking for that sidewalk to be installed. That's why I think staff felt comfortable approving this exception request.
Amanda?
So Terry, yes, you used green on green here. So Energy Park Drive is the line that you just drew in there. They're asking for a variance not to install the sidewalk on the north side of that, but they are going to install the sidewalk on the south side of Energy Park Drive?
That's my understanding.
Thank you, Mayor. I yield the floor.
Floor has been yielded. Alderman Jerry Wright.
Again, I have no problem with Power and Light's request, or Black Hills Corp, excuse me. But the statement is made there's not could you leave that back up there, please? You're talking about this not being residential, but I see a parking lot, and I believe that every little in between those dashes is a parking space, correct? So we're talking about a massive amount of vehicles being parked there, and I assume a massive amount of people walking to and from the office. So there's a significant pedestrian load. And I believe that a single sidewalk probably could handle it, and if needed, we go to two. But I think they have as much potential generating pedestrians as that residential ever would, if not more. Thank you.
Any further comment? Motion is for approval of item 22. Alderman Brad Estes.
Thank you. Just to clarify, Terry, if I could ask you a question. All the yellow that's on there, other than the yellow that goes into the parking lot, that is sidewalk, right? That is the sidewalk they are going to install?
Yes.
The big yellow loops and the, okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I was reading that right. Thanks.
Anything further? So Terry, are these private streets or city streets?
These are city streets.
They will all be city streets, maintained by the city.
Energy Park Drive is a public right-of-way, and so is, I don't remember the name of, well, you got Catron, but I don't remember the name of the other road that comes down in there. They are public right-of-way, though.
So once it's accepted into the city system after it's built, then it will be maintained by the city?
Correct.
Okay. Anything further? Motion is for approval on item 22. Last call. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 27, Alderman Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 27 is to approve the updated priority list of out-of-the-dust projects, and I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Scott, second by Estes to approve. Any discussion? Alderman Darla Drew.
Mainly, it's just a comment on this. I have been approached by several of my constituents that are worried about the alleys, the flooding going on in the alleys, and then the subsequent dust that happens. And it's good to see this list. So I just wanted to make them aware of the fact that the list is out there, and that if you want to be part of the consideration for this right now, this is the time to talk to Public Works and maybe get yourself on a meeting or on an agenda to talk about what your problems might be. Otherwise, I have no problem with the list, and I think it's a great project to help clean up our air and keep the dust at a minimum. So thank you.
Anything further on this item 27? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item number 30, Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 30 is to approve with the requirement to sign a waiver of right to protest the request from Dream Design International, Inc. for a variance to waive the requirement to install sidewalk per City Ordinance 12.08.060 on the east side of the proposed Healing Way north of Tatanka Court within the proposed Buffalo Crossing development, and I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Scott, second by Nordstrom to approve. Any discussion? Alderman Jerry Wright.
I just wanted to discuss the differences between the two, and I don't see where they are, and how can you justify it? Maybe Hani has a chance to talk about your project compared to Black Hills Court. And the question of the warp, you had a comment on that related to your client or the developer, correct? May I ask Hani to comment on that, please?
Go ahead.
The reason you don't want to warp.
You know, a couple of things before, like the zoning of the property where we're eliminating the sidewalk is actually commercial. On the east side is zoned for apartments, but it's a deep canyon. Even though the zoning allows for it to be developed as apartments, we are leaving that as a green space, as a buffer zone between our neighbors with the single-family residential and this commercial property that is in here. As far as the internal sidewalk within the development, there will be a ring sidewalk that hooks up, and we are trying to meet with the orthopause where we hook it up with there and looping back, and then we got 8 or 10-foot sidewalk on the west side of the road to make up for the east side. There will not be any development within this area, so therefore, it's the zoning within the area that we're requesting the variance is actually commercial on one side and no development on the other side. We intend to put sidewalk on the east side throughout the entire residential area in both sides of the street. One side will be whatever is required, which is 5 foot. The other side will be doubling that. So it's as far as that goes. Erasing this is which one? Third? Clear. Okay. Sorry. As far as our plans, why we don't want to warp in there. Number one, a warp clouds the title. Number two, we are going to be installing probably $100,000 or $60,000 worth of landscaping in the area where a sidewalk is being asked to be waived. And that landscaping will add to the landscaping buffer between the commercial and residential. And with the sidewalk being on the west side, which is this side, that sidewalk is going to be twice as much as required. And then the east side will be just landscaping. If we did the warp, then that will allow anybody to come in and say, hey, we want a sidewalk, remove all that expensive landscaping that we spent a lot of money on. So therefore, that's why we requested to withdraw the variance. And the reason that I'm here is actually just to mention that we're trying to do quality development, and I really don't like the inconsistencies in the recommendations. This is not the first one. And I really, most of all, did not like the delays in the traffic study deal, because none of these developments in that area, just to give you an idea, we are only in the preliminary stage of our subdivision, where we are actually doing just a schematic, which is basically, saying, okay, here are the roads and here are the water lines and the sewer lines. And we are working on the traffic study. Meanwhile, the properties across the street, regardless if it is to the north or to the west or to the northeast or the northwest, as a matter of fact, this right-of-way here was vacated without a traffic study, even though there is a service road here that dead ends, and that did not have a traffic study. We are not resisting a traffic study, but we really don't like to have a delay in the process claiming that it cannot be reviewed because of a traffic study. This road that is on the west side was platted in here without a traffic study. How can you decide how wide is that road without having a traffic study? You know, so it's like, you know, can you terminate this road without traffic study? How can you rezone any of these without a traffic study? So therefore, you know, we don't like the delay. I want to thank Mr. Quaker or Mayor Quaker for intervening to expedite the city staff from delaying the project even further and not calling the traffic engineer in Denver who was waiting for more than 3 weeks for a written phone call. That's where the discrepancies happen. You know, and that's the way we get treated in every project that we do by city staff. I realize some of you folks have been in the council for 2 or 3 years and you have seen it. And some of you try to put a rug, and cover it and thinking that it will be covered. That's not the way to do business with people who are trying to do quality work within the community. I really don't, think that it is wise for our community to keep people from, there could be about 100 people working up there instead of delaying the project. Thank you.
Alderman Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is, Hanny, is, if I may, as on the sidewalk let me rephrase that. Where you're planning to propose the landscaping on the east side on Healing Way, can you tell me what the grade or percent slope is on that east side?
The east side drops off, about 4-to-1 or 3-to-1 grade into a canyon. And we felt that it's not really wise to put people with bicycles on that side of the street. And we thought a landscaping buffer will provide more sense of beauty, serenity, and buffer, and also sense of safety along that street for the bikers and the pedestrians.
Thank you. And then including any kind of railings, any kind of barriers or something like that?
Really, in that class of road and with that speed, you don't need that because you have adequate buffer with the sidewalk. So it's just, the buffer is basically for the bike path.
Just to clarify a little bit on the traffic study, if I can switch over to that, is that just a little bit further explanation for me about understanding the timing on that traffic study. Can you elaborate a little bit about the delays specifically on that portion?
We have been working with the state. As a matter of fact, the first version of a traffic study was submitted to the state about January 29th or 30th. And they reviewed it, made comments on it. We brought it back and addressed their comments. There were 2 versions since then have been submitted to the state. And then the city staff were asked to give input on what the city would need since the other 2 roads are state highways. And that's where the issues happened as far as returning phone calls and delaying the traffic study by 3 weeks. We don't resist the traffic study. We chose to do a traffic study without even the city requiring that, or prior to the city requiring.
Thank you, Hanny. And then, if I may ask one more question about the traffic study, is that normally how long does that traffic study take on the just doing the traffic study?
It's probably 2 to 3 months.
Thank you. I'll yield.
Alderman Jerry Wright.
The real issue being discussed is that we have subdivision or development going in 2 different quadrants of the same intersection. One is given sidewalk on only one side of the street and not required on both, and this one we required on both. And that's the question I'm concerned about. And reality, we talk about a warp. We can order a sidewalk in if for some reason in the future that becomes a huge concern for pedestrians coming out of that area. We could order it in, could we not? And I'm just asking for consistency in how we do things. As I said earlier, I support the one side of the sidewalk on Black Hills Corp. I'm wondering why we aren't doing it here. Thank you.
Terry?
Try to remember the series of questions here. Yes, we can order the sidewalk in at any time. I think the requirement for warp, pretty standard language when we think there's ever potential for that sidewalk to maybe be ordered in at a future date. And again, where I see this somewhat different than the other quadrant over at Black Hills Power and Light is, my question is, do you ever foresee a time when somebody in that neighborhood will be requesting to have that sidewalk connect up to Catron? Keep in mind that a lot of times we try to learn from our past experiences in our engineering division. We certainly aren't perfect, but I'll remind you of a situation that occurred just within the last year where you had residents up on, I believe, Middle Valley Drive who did not want to cross the street to get to the sidewalk, even though we had ADA accessible ramps. They wanted the direct path, which went right past the stormwater detention pond. We're going to end up footing the bill to put that sidewalk in. Not because it has to be there, because somebody in the neighborhood decided it was good to do, and they came to you and requested it. And you as a city council deemed it was a worthwhile project. So do you ever foresee a time in the future when somebody in one of those neighborhoods will say, we don't want to cross Healing Way Lane to get to the sidewalk. We want to be able to go north to Catron. I'm going to assume at some point in the future there will be pedestrian connectivity along Catron, because at some point those neighborhoods out there are going to want to be able to connect to the rest of the community. So that's why we, as an engineering staff here, just recommended not to award it that way or not to approve it. You as a city council can do whatever you guys so choose. I'll be very frank, I'm not a big fan of warps, particularly on sidewalks. I don't think they serve a purpose. If next year city council wants to order the sidewalk in, you'll order the sidewalk in. You have the legal ability to do that. So the warps really serve no purpose other than to put the property owner on notice, but they don't serve a legal purpose. So if you guys don't require the warp, I'm totally fine with that. In fact, I would say if you don't want to install the sidewalk on the east side, I would probably recommend going with the landscaping that he recommended, because it's going to be a lot tougher for a city council in the future to rip that landscaping out. They're not going to do it. So, like I said, that's why I do think there are differences in the two developments.
Okay.
I still have the floor, I believe.
You do.
I'm going to back up, and I'm going to comment that if we look at how many lots are in that residential loop? 20, 30? Annie? How many potential residential units are in that area?
There are approximately 30 lots. About half of them will be townhomes, so there will be approximately 45 to 50 residential units. And I want to make sure that you folks understand, we are withdrawing our request, so we will comply with the ordinance as stated, where we're installing 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of the street. You know, I'm just here to utilize this platform to really voice our concern, our frustration with the process. Thank you. And I also wanted to really do appreciate Mayor Sam Quaker, his intervening into pushing that answer to pushing city staff to reply to the traffic engineer. And because if it wasn't for him, we'd probably still be waiting for 2 more weeks. Thank you.
So bottom line, we have nothing to deal with tonight because they're going to withdrawing and they're going to put it in the sidewalk per code and we're done, right? And I agree with we need to work on consistency and uniformity and fairness. Thank you.
So Hanny, do you mind if I ask you a question? Before we go to the next 3 lights here, it seems to me that you may just have snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. I mean, I was sensing, been around long enough to sense when motions are coming, and I sensed that there was going to be a motion potentially to grant the waiver or the variance without the waiver of right to protest. And now what I'm hearing you say is that you're pulling an item 30 completely and you're no longer asking the council for anything tonight. Am I right about that?
Yes, sir. And the reason for that is actually, it's really hard and costly to do development, you know, and to really do design and redesign and what have you. We're not, you know, just high school kids. that have finished. We have a lot of experience in doing this stuff, and we try to do what is right. You know, we're not required, for example, to put landscaping island in the middle of the boulevard. We're not required to do this and double the sidewalk on this side. We're doing that out of our experience with planning. We're not, you know, currently, you know, like, to be honest with you, it's like we were hoping to do a great development that really that corner deserves. With the frustration that you go with the staff and the money that you spend holding it and the money you spend back and forth, you say, heck with it. So the first thing is going is this. We're putting 5-foot sidewalk on this side and 5-foot sidewalk on this side. I guarantee you the landscaping that we were going to put in here would have cost more than the 2 sidewalks put together. You know, so it's not really a cost. And, you know, and to see that on the same agenda, that another item, I don't care what the zoning is, because the zoning across the street is for apartments, which is residential across from Power and Light. So it's like when you say that's all commercial, there are people do not just walk 10 feet. They walk, you know, a mile or a half a mile. So it's not consistent. You know, with all respect to Terry, you know, like, I realize he's trying to defend his staff. But in this case, I really cannot agree with him, with all the respect, you know. So it's, but, you know, Mayor, I really, you know, yes, I agree with you. You know, it's not really defeat and it's not victory. It's doing what is right and being consistent and doing treating people with decency and equality, and instead of discriminatory actions that are dependent on who is applying for them. And this is not the first time, you know. So it's, and I'll be more than happy to share with you, share with your city attorney, boxes of documents similar to this. I'll be more than happy to share with him that. And it's up to you folks what action you take. I don't go tie up myself in court of laws or whatever. That's not my way of doing business. My doing business is moving forward, especially with a community like ours, you know. So thank you.
Alderwoman Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. With the comments from the applicant, I withdraw my motion to approve and substitute to acknowledge the applicant's request to withdraw.
And that's okay with the seconder. Okay. You still have the floor if you want it.
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Brad Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I look at these two, and I guess I didn't know that I was sitting up here, that I was in high school either, but, you know, I guess I do some developments myself, and, you know, and I supported the warp, and I look at this as compared to the other one, and I see the potential down the road for there to be a lot of different, you know, obviously we have a developer that's developing this land, but once it's sold and developed and the commercial sold and you've got the multifamily and the houses are built and such, you've got a lot of different people involved in this, and you know, and Hanny said that the warp creates a cloud on the title. I guess it does, but if you're not ever going to develop, I guess I looked at it different. That, yeah, if you never develop that land, so people could come in and still request for that sidewalk to be built. But what I looked at it is that, as you state, Hanny, that in your opinion right now that land is too steep and nobody would develop it. This may get developed out here to a degree that where it might be economically feasible to develop it. And I just think that the warp puts the potential buyer on notice that they got to put that sidewalk in. You know, otherwise it just seems to me that if we don't do the warp, we don't put the landowner on notice, that the taxpayers in general get invited to the party. You know, and I fully get that we've got, you know, you did a very good job of using this as a platform to tell us about the traffic study. I wasn't aware that you had traffic study issues, I don't believe. But right now we're deciding, I guess, about, you know, discussing sidewalks and who should pay for them. So I guess it's unfortunate it's come down to this, but I will support the substitute motion. Thanks.
We have a substitute motion to acknowledge the applicant's withdrawal of the request for item 30. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We are now on items 43 through 50, Public comment is now open for these items 43 through 50. We do have several speaker request forms, 3 for item 47 and 1 for item 48. On item 47, we'll first go to the applicant, Troy Erickson. And while he's coming up, I'll read this. This is first reading of an ordinance amending the municipal code for rezoning within the described property from neighborhood commercial to general commercial for property generally described as being located at 310 East Fairmont Boulevard. Good evening, Troy.
Thank you, Mayor Quaker. Thank you, Council, for allowing me to be here. I'll state my name, Troy Erickson. I'm spokesman for MG Oil Company. I'm the one that did the request for the rezoning, and I just wanted to say I'm here to answer questions. I did send a letter to everyone on the council and the mayor and the site plan with some of my ideas. So if there's any questions at any time, just shoot away. Thank you.
And we'll now recognize Patricia Cook? Cook.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Cook. My husband and I live at 2907 Elm Avenue here in Rapid City. Our home is half a block north of the proposed rezoning area at 310 East Fairmont. Let me describe our area to you. It is mainly residential area that includes a low-income housing unit, an assisted living unit, a nursing home with an Alzheimer unit. There are several families in the area with small children, and during the school year, it is a major walking route for children to and from the schools. After we learned of the rezoning, we talked to several of our neighbors, and we all have major concerns about the businesses that are being proposed to be put in the area. The convenience store that's currently located at the area is now open 24 hours and sells beer. Per the statistics that I have received from the Rapid City Police Department, in the last year and 5 months, they have received 101 citizen-initiated calls. Of those calls, 7 are for intoxicated drivers, 54 thefts, 4 assaults, 3 fights, and 1 assault with a weapon. These do not include any calls from officers. In the letter from Mr. Erickson to the mayor and the city council, he states there are no casinos within several miles of the location. My home is 7/10 of a mile from the corner of Elm and St. Patrick Street. On St. Patrick Street, there are no less than 7 casinos in a 2-mile drive. One of those is 1/10 of a mile from Elm Avenue corner. That doesn't include any of the casinos that are on Mount Rushmore Road. We believe that if you allow the area to be rezoned, it will not only increase the police calls, but the traffic, and it also may cause additional family issues. Please consider how this will affect our area and the families that live there. I am sure that with all the strip malls in town and the areas for sale that are already zoned for general commercial, there is a suitable site for a casino, liquor, and car wash. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we'll now recognize Cheryl Erdmar on the same item, item 47.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Erdman. I live at 2923 Elm Avenue, and I was one of the few people that did receive a letter because I live within 250 feet away from the Circle S district. I don't know what else they call it. I'm not quite sure what the exact name for it is. When I received this letter, I did call because I wanted to know what was the intent, what was the reason for the rezoning. And when I was told that they wanted to incorporate a liquor store, casino, and car wash in the area, red flags went up because we are a residential area. We do have the assisted living on one side, but every place else is residential around there. Even in the apartments, there are people living in those apartments with lots and lots of children that walk by every single day. I mean, we even have kids set up lemonade stands down at the corner, right across from the Circle S, right on Elm Avenue and Fair Lane. If we have something like that in our backyards, and that's what concerns me the most, is I don't want to see that kind of traffic in my own backyard. I don't think any of you would want to see that in your backyard either. But we do have lots of children walking to and from school during the school year. I constantly see kids going down there to get candy bars from the convenience store that's down there. And in the convenience store, they do sell beer. And a lot of times I see people walking down, getting a 12-pack almost daily, same people walking down, getting a 12-pack, walking back home. I'm afraid for them. I really and truly am. I'm asking you to not rezone this. I also have a letter from a neighbor of mine who, she's here, but she didn't get a chance to fill out a form. And she had some other issues that she wanted to address with this as well. The potential for increased crime. She lives directly across from the Circle S Plaza, and they've had numerous things stolen. I mean, just as it is right now, with just having the convenience store right there with the gas station, numerous things have been taken out of their front yard through the course of the years. And they've lived there 4 years. I've lived there 22 years. And so I'm concerned about the increase in crime, really and truly. And our police officers, every so often I see them monitor up and down, but not near as often. And people already drive too fast through there. It's a 25 zone, and I see people going through there 35, sometimes even 40. And I don't want to see the increased traffic late at night. And so, I mean, I like to sleep with my windows open. I'm sure you do too. And I don't want to hear the cars. I don't want to hear the people. I just don't want to have that in my own neighborhood. The other thing we have, let's see, the increased traffic, lots of children in our neighborhood. And as it's already been stated, there are numerous casinos and liquor stores and car washes within at least even a 2-mile radius of the Circle S Plaza, at least 2 miles from where I live, and I'm within 250 feet, so it's not that far. Okay, thank you for your time.
We're now on to public comment for item 48. We'll recognize Eric Willitson from Copper Ridge LLC, the project engineer. While he's coming up, I will read this into the record. This is a recommendation by committee to deny the exception request to waive the requirement to construct a portion of Golden Eagle Drive as it abuts proposed Tract 1 of Copper Ridge subdivision. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Eric Willitson. I'm with Willitson Lund Engineering. As the mayor said, I'm the project engineer for the Copper Ridge development that's currently under construction. As you can see there, that is Promise Road and proposed or future Golden Eagle Drive. If you're familiar with the development that's going on up there right now, they're under construction with the apartments that are kind of up on top of the hill. That proposed alignment for a future street is just that. It was actually proposed by the owner, the previous owner of the property, and there were at that time plans for development down at the bottom. At this point, the current owner does not have any plans for developing other than the apartment complex on the top. We're not even sure if that would be the future alignment of that road. It is where you see the intersection in the southwest corner. That is a section line right-of-way that extends to the west. And at this point, there's actually a trail that runs down that section line, and then it turns at the corner and follows the edge of the property. Again, what we're asking for at this time is if you would just allow us to construct about the first 250 feet of that, and maybe I point that out to you. Right here's the entrance to the apartment complex off Golden Eagle. And what we're proposing is just to construct that first 250 feet or so, just just to the end of where the entrance to that parking lot would be, the entrance, the secondary entrance exit to the apartment complex. But what staff has indicated is we would need to construct the road all the way down to a point about right here, which would be the end of what would be the plat for the first phase of the apartment complex. And if you're familiar with that area, that is, the grade of that road going down that hill is 10% at least. And I guess what we're saying is, without knowing what's going to develop down there, without knowing if that will even be the future alignment for the road, shouldn't we wait to build that until we're sure? Like I said, we're not even sure if the road would just go straight down the section line. But because we need to plat the property around the corner for this first phase of the project, city ordinance would require that we construct the entire roadway down there, essentially a road to nowhere. With no plans to develop in the future, it could be years before it were ever extended, and it may not even be in the right place. So I guess what we're asking is for this exception to hold off construction of the curved portion of the road and just allow us to construct that first 200, 250 feet to get by or to get past the entrance to the apartments, and then we will wait and see if and when development occurs down below. I guess with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have concerning that request.
Thank you. This concludes the public comment for items 43 through 50. Have I missed anyone? Last call. Public comment is now closed on items 43 through 50. We'll start with item number 43. Chad Lewis, if you could read this in the record for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 43 is second reading of ordinance 6060, an ordinance to revise the regulations relating to private water and sewer lines by amending chapter 13.12 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Lewis, second by Scott. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries with one here.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
He's just waking up. Item number 44 is approved resolution 2015-061, establishing criteria for prioritizing replacement of private non-conforming sewer and water services lines per chapter 13.12 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Move approval.
Second.
By Lewis, second by Scott. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. 45.
Item number 45 is first reading of ordinance 6061, an ordinance to revise provisions for management and administration of municipal airport by amending chapter 2.72 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Lewis, second by Estes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Item number 46 is first reading of ordinance 6062, an ordinance to revise provision regulating activities and operations at the municipal airport, by amending chapter 13.28 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Lewis, second by Drew. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. 47.
Item number 47 is first reading of ordinance 6057, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as just requested by MG Oil, Troy Erickson, president, for rezoning from neighborhood commercial district to general commercial district for property generally described as being located at 310 East Fairmont Boulevard. Yield the floor.
Floor has been yielded. Do we have a motion or discussion? Alderman Jerry Wright.
I have some question. If this is denied, are we on good basis legally, Council?
Yes, I would say you are. This is a little different than some of the previous casinos that have come before you. This is traditionally when you've seen a casino, it's a conditional use permit request. The property is already properly zoned, and there are certain criteria for an on-sale alcohol establishment that have to be met. And where we've gotten into problems is where you've found that the conditions are not met. because it's a rezone, it's a different question, and there aren't such specific criteria. Really is whether or not this is an appropriate zoning classification for this property. But because it's completely surrounded by residential and really appears to fit the definition of neighborhood commercial, I think that you are on solid legal ground if you decide that it should remain neighborhood commercial. I would obviously defer to Brett or community planning as far as the basis for why neighborhood commercial versus commercial is more appropriate.
Recognize our planning director, Brett Limbaugh.
Yeah, in this instance, we're talking about a parcel that's completely surrounded by residential uses. It's an acre, 1.7 acres, so it's a fairly small parcel. And I do believe that when our staff looked at that, they understood that there was a lot of residents that go and use the commercial facilities that are on this parcel, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's zoned neighborhood commercial. Now, if you increase the intensity to something like general commercial, casinos is only one thing that you need to be concerned about. They also allows for car sales, boat sales, some other things that are a little bit more intense than you would probably want in a neighborhood commercial setting. So I think that's what our staff looked at when they wrote the project report and presented that to our planning commission.
I'm done, thank you.
Alderman Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to deny and retain the floor.
We have a motion by Scott and a second by Doyle to deny, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. At the Planning Commission, this was well vetted out by the planning commissioners, and there were a couple planning commissioners that were very familiar with this area. And basically, Mr. Limbaugh's comments is what the planning commissioners had discussed at that time, that this is a very triangular piece of ground that is surrounded by residential all the way around, and that it is currently already zoned neighborhood commercial district, and that allows the current businesses to be there that actually support the neighborhood. So I'll uphold the planning commissioner's decision. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And one of the things I looked at while taking a look at this, and is that we've had several situations up here where we had general commercial right next door to people's houses, and there was nothing that we could do. I mean, we could vote whatever way we wanted and get challenged legally, which has happened, and we lost. We have a situation here where neighborhood commercial is, I think, appreciated to some degree. I mean, people don't want to drive all the way to Mount Rushmore Road or St. Patrick Street to fill their car up with gas. I know that I've been mowing the lawn and appreciate being able to run over to Circle S quite a few times. But we do have an opportunity here to make sure that the integrity and the peace, I guess, of that neighborhood can maintain, and we don't get that opportunity. So I think, Mr. Erickson, just in consideration of the fact that you don't hold by residential, I think the Planning Commission probably made the right decision on this one. Thank you.
Any further discussion? The motion is for denial. All in favor of denial, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 48. Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 48 is to deny the exception request to waive the requirement to construct a portion of the Golden Eagle Drive as it abuts proposed Track 1 of the Copper Ridge subdivision. I make a motion to deny.
We have a motion by Scott and a second by Weifenbach to deny.
I yield the
Per the
floor.
recommendation of committee, did the floor yielded, or did you need the floor? Okay. Alderman Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I look at this, is this supposed to hook into the road that kind of splits and goes towards Villaggio? One side goes to Villaggio and the other side heads south?
Can we put the map up, please?
Because it's not showing the T on the overhead. That's what I was trying to figure out where it connects into. So where it bends around and connects on, that's where the road currently terminates, and the other way it goes towards the Villaggio. Is that correct? Would that be, am I making the right assumption on that? Okay, so how come it's not showing the road toward the Villaggio? Am I missing that on that overhead? Or is the Villaggio, is that farther up the hill? Okay. All right, so up the hill and more. So is that paved, or is that just currently, that's not paved that far, is it? We're asking them to terminate is, can you mark what they're asking them to build to? I kind of got it, but I want to make sure.
Yeah, okay, just so we're clear, the section of roadway that exists up there is this one. This comes out to Highway 16.
Right, but I'm talking when we head
Yeah,
west.
let me get my colors going here. The section that we were requesting to build is through here.
Right, and is that, now where you're terminating that, is that, what is that right now? Is that
None
a
of
cow
that
trail?
in red exists at this time.
Okay, so that is the cow trail, then that's not like a, okay. Because the way I was thinking that was the Bellagio, if you go up farther up the hill.
The Bellagio would be over in
Yeah,
this
right.
area up here.
So how do you know that road's gonna turn like that? Is it just following terrain? Is that what you're doing topographical or how?
I believe there's a general alignment and elevation of the road that was laid out that
Okay, so it's
that
part of the
shows a
master plan,
collector.
or-
Yeah, it shows as a collector street on the master street plan.
So if it was to go straight instead of bend to the north, as it does, what would the grade on that road, instead of, you understand what I'm saying by bending it toward the north there, where you terminated your
Yeah,
red
a
marker?
couple of things. I'm not sure from an elevation standpoint if that alignment straight north-south would work. The other thing that would probably need to happen is, I think you'd have to do an amendment to the major street plan.
Okay. I'm just, at first when I saw that, I thought that terminated and I thought it was farther up the hill. I'm just trying to figure out why it's drawn in there as a, I'm sorry? Yeah, I know that, I'm familiar with the property, I see it all the time, I drive past it all the time, I'm just saying I realize it's steep, but I'm just trying to figure out, I can understand their argument that they don't know exactly where the road's gonna go, I can appreciate that. Besides trying to save some money, if it's a road to nowhere at this point, unless it's already planned out, you understand where I'm coming from? If it was to go straight, I could understand a little more, but I understand we're following terrain and you're talking about a steep percentage grade, but I was trying to figure out exactly how that that kind of divides that land up pretty good if you do that. Go ahead.
If I could,
Sure.
I think just strictly from a grade standpoint, I think that's probably the alignment that's going to have to happen to get it to tie in with the Bellagio over there.
Okay. I guess I'm stuck on this because I know where the property is, I see it every day, and I do understand the need to tie into the Bellagio, and I thought that's what we were doing here, but, man, it's a tough one to think about. Yield the floor.
Alderman Jerry Wright.
Did we lose our map? I see this as maybe the ideal place for a warp. The 250 feet they're asking about makes sense because no matter what happens, that's probably going to work. The rest of it is kind of an unknown, correct? Because that alignment, I think, was put together maybe 15 years ago, guess give or take, when the developer was looking at the whole project, and that changed after the crash of 06, 07, as my memory's right. Would it not be reasonable for us to require the construction or allow the construction of the road up to the point where it's still going to stay straight no matter which way it goes, and have a warp agreement with the petitioner that would state that they would allow the construction or pay for the construction when it's finally allied?
All right. My only concern there would be typically on a warp, the city's going to bankroll the construction. Keep that in mind. So I'd be a little hesitant to go that route. The other thing is a lot of times we would require a surety of some sort, but I think as Del Tech mentioned at Public Works last week, there's just some issues there. If we thought it was something that was coming in the next 2 years, you could probably do that and track it, and you'd be somewhat assured that the surety is going to be at a level that's going to pay for it. But we're going to be doing construction on a road here on surety that we had out 10 years ago, and we're just pulling it now. And simple fact is the taxpayers are paying a majority of that cost probably because the surety was never enough to pay for it. So it's one of those things where, yeah, I understand why they're asking for it. I understand why you as a council struggle with this one, but we look at it strictly from the standpoint of protecting the taxpayers and not having to build something on the taxpayer's dime.
Well, my intuition is telling me that route alignment could change some. I don't know, because no one knows what's going to happen there. And I don't have the answer for you. I'd hate to see the developer spend a ton of money on it or put us on the liability for a ton of money in the future. In any case, but I'd hate to build a road and then as it's developed in the future, it's different. And we spend a ton of money on something that we don't need. That's my dilemma right now. I yield the floor.
I'm thinking out loud, and that gets me into trouble sometimes. But I see that there's some council that are struggling with this a little bit too. If you'd like to continue it for 2 weeks, I mean, I could certainly sit down with staff. We can talk about any alternative options there. I'm not sure why the right-of-way is being platted as far as it is. I don't know if there's an option of maybe not platting it that far. I don't know if there's some other options available out there, but I guess we could maybe look at continuing it for 2 more weeks and just make sure we've exhausted any other options that would work for the applicant and at the same time protect the city.
You can have the floor back.
Well, I've already spoken, so I don't think I can make a motion, can I?
No, you can't.
So I'll yield.
All right.
That's
Alderman
what I'd like to see.
Brad Estes.
What he just said, I'd like to see happen. Thank you.
There was a motion to deny, so you'd be making a substitute motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a substitute motion to continue this for 2 weeks, and if I could get a second, I'll keep the floor. Thank you. You know, I look at this, and could I ask the applicants a question quick, Mayor?
You may.
Just real quickly, I recollect that during your presentation, you said that you were going to phase. Eric is your name?
Correct, yes, Eric.
What is your intention to, how many buildings total are on this piece of property?
There are, potentially, could be at least up to 6.
Okay.
The first 2 are constructed. This is the first phase. In order to go from construction financing to permanent financing on that first phase, that lot needs to be platted so that it's...
Oh, okay, I see. You're trying, those 2 buildings are done, you're trying to plat that lot, and that kicks this in.
And that kicks this in. And right now, like you said, it's a road to nowhere.
Okay.
We have no idea what's going to happen below that. So we'd like to build the straight piece that we know is right and just hold off on the rest and not let it sit there and pot for 10 years or however long it takes to develop and possibly be in the wrong place.
So my next question is, so let's say we agree to put the 250 feet in, and then you get your permanent financing and everything's looking good, and you decide to build buildings 3 and 4. I mean, do you think at the end of building 6, it'd be conducive for your development to be able to put that road in up to the end? I mean, do you think it'll carry that much load?
Again, that road, and I understand it's part of your major street plan, but it was a road that was projected before this owner owned the property, and it very well could change. When we plat the rest of the lots off, none of those have frontage. This is the only lot that it would have frontage on that road. The rest of the frontage on that road would be the property down below the hill, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so we think we can plat the rest of the lots have frontage on Promise Road. So we can go ahead and plat those. We're just the first, maybe we picked the wrong building to build first. But those are, like I said, those are constructed. And all we're asking for is, like I said, just to stop that 250 feet past that first entrance, or the second entrance is the alternative entrance that we need, and just wait with the rest of it until we're sure what's going to happen down there.
Okay, thank you. Well, here's where I'm at. I mean, I wanted to continue this for 2 weeks to make sure that we as a community have exhausted all effort. I thought these were, now I know where you're talking about. I know exactly. But to see that we've exhausted all options here
And
for
we
you.
do, yes, sir,
And-
excuse me. we do have an alternate plan that we proposed that stopped the plat at the end of that 250 feet, and that was rejected by staff.
Well, maybe they can,
So maybe
I'm
we
just,
can work
I'm just
that out.
finishing up my first 2 years, and I'm just gonna tell you what I learned here in this first 2 years. I'm gonna give you a Brad Estes recap of the first 2 years. This mayor right here brought in a guy to try to take a look at second floor. And the motto was, what do we gotta do to get to yes? And I thought that was brilliant, you know, and sometimes I think yes doesn't always mean that we have to overlook what our rules are, but yes, if we rolled up our sleeves and done the work to make sure that we're working with people, because we know that you can take your money and go somewhere else. But still we have the basic fundamental rules that we need to follow by, but I hope we have 2 weeks. You know, maybe they'll come back and say, no, this isn't gonna work, but I'm gonna spend more time becoming more knowledgeable on this over the next 2 weeks. And I wanted to use my, how do we get, oh, John, your phone's going off. But anyway, and I wanted to just remind everybody, because that stuck with me, because I'm not saying second floor is broke, but we can always get better, and that was the motto of the consultant that came in, is when people come in the door, what do we do as a community to get to the answer yes? And with that, Mayor, I wanted to tell you it's been a pleasure serving with you the last 2 years, and I thought that was a great idea that you had. So, and it made me think of that when Mr. Shaffey used a sidewalk and landscaping to tell us about a traffic study. So, anyway, so I'll yield right now, but I just think the best thing that we as a council can do right now is to continue this for 2 weeks, and I yield.
If we could clarify your motion before we move forward, would you like this to make a stop off at Public Works?
Please.
Okay, and that's okay with the seconder?
Yes.
Who seconded?
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I echo some of those comments, and I think our Public Works Director has offered up an opportunity to take a look at this. But I'm getting my arms around about this a little bit, and we continue it. And this road, I would imagine, would be on the street plan, so it's not like they tried to hide this road. It was approved probably by the council's processes and procedures that are in place. So, and I also agree that the fact that we've tried to do what we can do to make yeses happen. I think Terry's offered up that opportunity. There's already 2 buildings on this, in my understanding. Yeah. And it's the same plat or a different plat?
Right now, the current developers own the entire tract, and so those buildings are under that legal description. Nothing's been platted, it's all one lot.
And so nothing's been platted, so there's nothing built there then? How do you, I mean, I'm not sure I get that part, because doesn't the...
The permit was issued on the entire parcel. The building permit.
Oh, on the entire parcel?
The entire
Oh,
parcel.
and now you're trying to plat off a piece of it?
Correct.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we have the rules, because I understand that road was a stop, and it may never ever get built beyond that. So I think that I will support continuation to see if there's an alternative, but I guess the other question I have is, you said this was an alternate entrance or exit? Is there another entrance exit into this subdivision?
Into the complex, yes. The primary access is right here into it. I don't know. That's where the primary access is. This is a secondary access.
What's the frontage road there then?
I'm sorry?
The frontage road that you're circled right there, what's that?
Promise Road. That curved road down there's Promise Road, goes right by the fire station.
Okay. So that's an ulterior exit. Okay. I
maybe this
guess I'll yield the floor and I can support a continuation if that works for everybody involved.
The motion is to continue this to the next Public Works meeting. Alderman Chad Lewis. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. The item has been continued to the next Public Works meeting. Do we have a date on that? June 30, Tuesday, June 30.
July?
June 30th.
Oh,
June.
June
June
30.
30.
June.
June 30. Yeah. Item number 49 is an update on fairgrounds and Central States Fair events, and I see food and balloons.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Ron Jeffries, General Manager for Central States Fair and the Black Hills Stock Show. I have with me two of my board of directors. Tiffany Robertson is our current president. She is a rancher and businesswoman from Hermosa. Darla Crown is a retired Chief Master Warrant Officer 5 from the South Dakota National Guard, just elected onto our board of directors. We wanted to take just a moment and give you an update for the Central States Fair. This is our 70th anniversary of the fair. And yeah, it's Darla's birthday. No, that's 555.
We're going to pay for that one.
This is our 70th anniversary for the Central States Fair, and our theme this year is 70 years of food on a stick. So we have brought you samples of different kinds of food on a stick. We'd like everybody to select one or two or however many. Chief, we'd like you to make sure you get one as well. So Joel, you guys grab them as well as they come by. But the fair this year is August 14th to the 23rd. We're excited about it. We've got our Black Hills Power Concert Series finished. I can tell you that Randy Hauser and the Eli Young Band are confirmed and will be at the fair. I've got one more big act to announce. We can't announce it until we get permission from the band, and I'll have that for you here in the media in just a couple of days, I think.
Tell us off the record, please.
Yeah, tell us off the record. We're very excited about the direction of the fair. We had a really good stock show, and the agritourism business is really strong right now. We have events. We have our first open weekend at the fairgrounds is December 17th. So we have events every single weekend from now until December 17th. As I said, agritourism is very healthy right now. We just finished a horse sale this past weekend along with the Black Hills Barbecue Festival. Thank you, Darla Drew Lairdo, for playing for us. Dee Dee and the Pharaohs opened our Sunday show at the Barbecue Festival. Our horse sale was a $250,000 horse sale. Had a high seller of 10,000, so it went very well. Very strong market still for us. And our passes for the Central States Fair go on sale starting July 1st. And so you'll see the passes are general admission or grandstand passes. Normally they're $75. They will be $45 again as we kick it off, but it's all a celebration of our 70th anniversary of the Central States Fair. And with that, I would just like to thank our commission, our council, and my board of directors, and Charity Doyle also serves, as you're well aware. We appreciate your service as well, and I'd open it for any questions.
Any questions or a motion to acknowledge the update?
Motion to acknowledge.
We have a motion by Lewis and a second by Nordstrom to acknowledge. Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Ron, I appreciate it, and I think your addition of your two ladies there and Darla for sure will, and
quite a visual update.
Yeah. The fair obviously has been a huge economic impact to our city. Anytime you have that question, you drive around town, you see the horse trailers, whatever it is, like you'd mentioned, what'd you call it, agritourism?
Agritourism, yes.
Yeah, so I just call them farmers and ranchers, but huge economic opportunity. You guys do it on a shoestring down there. It's amazing to me to see the amount of money that you put in the coffers of the business community in Rapid City. And I appreciate 300 or 400 of your volunteers or whatever that number is that you have there, Ron. It's amazing, and we appreciate what you do for the city of Rapid City and understanding that, the county itself, generally, majority is comprised of the citizens of Rapid City, and sometimes we forget that, and we think we're two different people when we're not. We're the same people. Thanks.
Thank you.
Alderman Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we had some fun talking about 70 different things on a stick for the 70th celebration. Did we ever get
So
a
you'll
whole
have to watch
list
our
of 70?
Facebook page,
Okay.
because our Facebook page will have a competition with 2 VIP passes for anybody in the Facebook world that shows us their food of choice on a stick. So be as creative as you can. It'll be coming soon, and we'll have 2 VIP passes for the most creative.
And then what kinds of things throughout the fair are we going to see with respect to this theme?
Quick rundown of the grandstand lineup. We'll do a Supercross race that's in its about its 16th year. It's been a very good event for us. Of course, hosting that single event during the fair has led to a winter series that has 5 races here in Rapid City. Riders come from Colorado, Wyoming, North Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa, and Nebraska to come race here in Rapid City because of that single event that started about 15 years ago. We have the Johnson Machine Napa Demolition Derby, which is always a smashing good time. We have 3 nights of the Black Hills Power Concert Series, Randy Hauser, Eli Young Band, and band to soon be announced. And then we also have a ranch rodeo and 3 nights of PRCA rodeo. We do 1 night of military tribute at our rodeo, and we also have Casey Tibbs produced the Range Days Rodeo in 1961 and 62. And so we've got a tribute to Casey Tibbs as part of our rodeo tribute this year. Should be really neat. We're working with the movie makers of the movie about Casey Tibbs, the floating cowboy, or floating horses, I guess it was. And so it should be very good. And then we've got a ton, and I do mean a ton, of grounds entertainment, what we call our free entertainment. From clowns and jugglers and hypnotists and musicians and magicians, and we've got dog races, but they've got monkey jockeys. So it's kind of a neat twist on things. I mean, we'll have the great white tigers back again. So just a lot of neat stuff.
We're getting questions back here. Seriously, on the monkey jockey thing, and yeah.
Yeah, they
and
do.
Ron, could you tell us the dates for the fair again for the viewing public, please?
Sure, it's August 14th through the 23rd. You'll be able to get complete updates on our website, centralstatesfair.com.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
In favor of the motion to acknowledge, please say aye.
Aye. Here.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 50, this is a mayoral transition update. I just want to give a brief update on how things are going with the transition for our new mayor. And there's several items I want to cover. The first is probably the most important for the time being, and that's the preparation of the 2016 budget. As I said recently in 2011, and I said it then too, I didn't like the fact that the budget had been introduced to the council prior to the election. So in this case, the budget has not only not been introduced to the council, it wasn't even presented to the mayor until after the election. So starting the day after the election, I met with Steve to discuss the process, and then starting 2 days later, on Thursday, June 4, Mayor-elect Allender and I met with started meeting with each of the departments for the internal budget meetings. Those have been completed, and the process for putting together the budget is underway. And Pauline, would you give us a brief update on the budget process, please?
Sure. The department directors, like Mayor Quaker said, did meet with both him and Mayor-elect Steve Allender, and we wrapped those up on Monday. There are a lot of conversations. I think it was helpful for Steve to be on that side of it, where he could ask questions and see what's really going on in everyone else's budgets and see those needs as well. Some changes were made that we still need to move forward with on the budget, and then once those are done, we'll see where we're at again, and then we'll probably at that point sit down with Steve and see where he wants to go before we do a presentation to you as a council. In addition to that, we have started the new process with the priority-driven budgeting process, and so some of the departments have requested additional FTEs for 2016, as well as some additional needs for their department, and we will have priority-driven budgeting sheets. There was a miscommunication. Some people understood what I said, some people did not. Some of the departments have already included that additional funding request in their budgets, and some had not, with the hopes that we would actually vet the offer sheets once we got those, and that would be a decision by council. I will tell you, some of those have already been added to the budget per Mayor Quaker's request, and I believe Steve wasn't really vocal, but I think he had some concurrence with most of what was done. But they both have already been put on notice that with what the departments have provided to us, that cuts will need to be coming forward, either cuts or increased revenues. So just keep that in mind when we come to you guys next month.
Anything further on the budget? Okay. And the presentation is potentially scheduled for second meeting in July?
Correct, the second meeting in July.
Okay, very good. And I have a couple other items to add. So the budget part is really important because the reality is that our new mayor will own the 2016 budget whether or not he is involved in it. So it's critical, in my opinion, that he have a major voice in the process. I ended up owning the 2012 budget, although it really wasn't mine, and I had some influence on it, but it had already been introduced prior to the election. Next is our new mayor's email address has been recreated at steve.allender@rcgov.org, and it has been added to the Everyone group and to the department director's email address already to assist with the transition. He is checking his email at his new, or actually his new old email address, so you can send him messages individually if you like, and then after the transition occurs, the mayor at rcgov.org will go to him also. One thing that's very important that has not received a lot of discussion is that when I took office in 2011, the process for tracking constituent calls and requests for help was a bizarre variety of sticky notes, emails, and memories. And we now have an excellent constituent service software process called Issue Tracker, and this was implemented by Michael Howard, who served in our office previously, and Jeff Barbier and our IT staff, Jim Gilbert mainly, to help track concerns and assign issues to the right department. That process will stay intact and will continue to help future mayors and councils handle constituent issues. When you call the mayor's office, any of the council members here, with concerns, it goes into the issue tracker so that it can be appropriately assigned out, and it helps us not lose track like we used to. It's not that there was a lack of dedication, there was simply a lack of organization, and that has changed. File sharing and preservation, we have an excellent process in place and to ensure file preservation. And I'm not going to belabor the point since it's been said previously. When I arrived in office, the hard drives had been wiped clean and I had no staff. And that is not going to happen again. Mayoral transitions in Rapid City have occurred somewhat frequently, but they are often not smooth, and this one is going to be as absolutely as smooth as possible. And due to our archiving of files digitally, the process for preservation of files is much easier than before. And with that being said, there is still an extensive amount of paper files that are being transitioned. In addition to ensuring city policy for documentation, preservation is followed, we are doing all that we can to make sure that the transition is as seamless and enjoyable as possible for our new mayor and the departing one. Dave Neefsey, Lindsay Sechrist, and Jessica Mertz in our office are working with Steve Allender on many other aspects of the transition as well. There have been many meetings. He's been in the office almost every day, and we've been working through the process. So I'll have a chance to give my swan song and my speech here in a couple weeks, and I'll save most of it for them. But I congratulate him on the election, and I look forward to the next phase in my life, whatever that holds. Life is an adventure. I've always viewed it that way, and I'm excited about being able to hopefully have left the woodpile higher than what I found it. So with that being said, our finance officer and I had a sidebar, and we need to add an item tonight to discuss a special council meeting scheduling for discussing, for the canvassing the results for the June 23 Ward 3 special election or runoff. And so if we can get a motion to acknowledge item 50, we'll dispose of that. Motion by Lewis, second by Doyle. Any discussion on item 50? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So we need unanimous consent. We have anybody that objects to adding a special council meeting discussion for the June 23 runoff?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
We'll consider it added. Motion by Wright, second by Estes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Pauline, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize, I was out of the office last week, so it didn't even dawn on me that we're going to need to do this. But with the special election for the runoff on June 23rd, we have 7 days in which we have to canvass those votes. So Charlene will be getting a hold of you probably later this week to schedule that and see what works best in your schedule. I would like to say maybe, if it's possible, we could actually team it up with the Public Works meeting that next Tuesday, because then we would just need one more council member to be there for quorum purposes if the other ones could not do it. If we could maybe do it right before the council or the Public Works meeting. But Charlene will send out an email. Just food for thought.
Okay, very good. We have motion to authorize the scheduling of the special council meeting. We have a motion by Estes and a second by Wright to authorize the scheduling of the special council meeting per Finance Office recommendation and coordination. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Items 51 and 2, we need to pull these for separate consideration. If not, can we have a motion to approve both? Second. Motion by Lewis, second by Estes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We are at the end of the consent public hearing calendar. Do not have any speaker request forms. Have I missed anyone? Items 53 through 55. Seeing none, do we have Amanda Scott, can you read 53 for us?
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 53 is a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers, Inc. for Icon Holdings, LLC for a vacation of right-of-way for property generally described as being located at Northview Drive and Silver Nugget Drive. I make a motion to approve with stipulations.
Motion by Scott, second by Estes, and we'll go to our Planning Director, Brett Limbaugh.
Yeah, staff had spoke with me this morning that we have one outstanding item, corrections to a developmental lot agreement that need to be made. So what they have asked is that we continue this item to the next City Council meeting on the 6th of July.
I withdraw my motion and make a substitute motion to continue until the July 6th City Council meeting.
Motion by Scott, second by Estes. Any discussion on the continuation? Does this go through committee or does this just go directly to council? Okay, directly to council on July 6th. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 54, Amanda.
Second reading, ordinance 6051, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Dream Design International, Inc. for a rezoning from general commercial district to low density residential district 2 for property generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of Marlin Drive and Minnesota Street. I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Amanda Scott, second by Brad Estes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Item number 55, second reading ordinance number 6054, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Dream Design International, Inc. for a rezoning from general commercial district to office commercial district for property generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of Marlin Drive and East Minnesota Street. I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Scott, second by Roberts. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Bill list, Pauline Sumption.
Thank you. The bill list does not have any additions to it, so the total is that which is before you, and the total amount is, drum roll please. Sorry, she whipped through those. I wasn't expecting that. $6,648,166.28.
Motion by Scott, second by Drew. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We have motion to adjourn. Motion by Drew, second by Scott. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned 9:23 PM. Have a good evening, everyone.
What the 28 cents was for.
Yeah, right.